Welcome to It's All Geek to Me, a podcast where two friends experience popular nerdy franchises for the first time. My name is Leah, and this season my co-host Kelly and I will be traveling to a galaxy far, far away as Kelly experiences Star Wars for the very first time. And I'm the expert. Let's dive in.
Did you miss us?
That's a new intro. Ooh, it surprised me a little bit.
Did it scare you? I don't know.
I'm terrified, yes.
Okay.
Who are you and what have you done with Kelly?
I'm sorry. I'll try again. How about we're back?
Ooh, nope.
No, okay. You know what? I'll workshop this. We'll see what happens for next week's episode. Well, let's just dive right into it because we are a third of the way into Star Wars Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi. And we got a pretty nice chunk of movie watched in this section. And I'm really excited. Like I said last time and the episode before that, I'm fully invested now. I love this stuff. So I'm waiting for Luke to have his evil moment and I'm ready for it. I'm hoping it happens. It hasn't happened in this section, but I'm pretty ready for it. But a lot of good stuff has happened.
All right.
So we actually start off at, I guess, like the rendezvous point. They're on a ship with a bunch of the rebels. There's a bunch of different groups there. There's like different uniformed people. There's different alien creatures. There's actually these alien pilots who look like kind of stereotypical aliens. And I have seen those guys before.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if this is their only portion in the original trilogy, but they're definitely recognizable characters. And I actually noticed as we were cutting to the first, scene of this section with Han and Lando, I actually saw Princess Leia in the background chatting with some people. So I'm guessing that was like some of her people, maybe? Or all of her people might be dead?
Well, yeah, everyone from her home planet are dead, but I don't think they're specifically her people. But later on in the scene, there was a guy named Admiral Akbar who was sort of giving command. Is that the species you're talking about? There's like the woman who's talking and then she like brings another guy forward.
Oh, and then the alien, well, that's the recognizable character.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he's just like a high-ranking guy, which is why Leia would talk to him, because she's a high-ranking gal.
Okay, fair. Well, Han and Lando are chatting, and it turns out that Lando is now a general, and he's going to be leading some of the rebels, which is pretty exciting. And Han is congratulating him, and Lando's like, I'm surprised that they didn't ask you to do it. And Han is like, who says they didn't? I'm just not crazy. Although I do wonder if they actually did ask him. But then this woman comes up to, this whole crew of people, silences them, and she says that the Emperor made a critical error and now is basically the time to strike because the Death Star has weapons, but they're not functional. So there's no way for them to attack back. So she's basically saying that now is the time to attack this new Death Star before it is fully functional and complete. So at this point, the alien guy comes up and he kind of starts explaining a little bit more detail. And I definitely messed some of this up in my notes because I thought, so there's a defensive shield and they want to deactivate the defensive shield because that's basically the only thing stopping them from blowing up the Death Star. And then they could go in and blow up the main reactor and kill everybody on board, which they know now that Darth Vader and the Emperor are both on board. So definitely a great time to fight. And they also did mention that a lot of people died for this information, so they really want to make sure that it is used.
Yeah, I don't think you messed up that information.
That's not the part that I messed up.
Oh.
But I think what I was a little confused about, I thought that the defense shield was on the Death Star, but it turns out that it's on a planet, which turns out it's a moon. It was a lot. Like Endor, is this a moon or a planet?
It's an Endor moon. So I think it's the same thing that we were seeing in the last movie where you're hearing system. It's a system and then there are planets and moons within the system. So this particular defense mechanism seems to be controlled on this particular moon in Endor.
Okay. I guess that's makes sense.
I think, but I don't know. I don't know fully for sure,
technical.
But I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Well, we understand basically what's going on here, which is that they need to get here, turn off the defensive shield, and then someone's going to go in and blow up the main reactor. So then a third guy comes up after alien guy, and he explains that someone volunteered to go turn off the power on the defensive shield. And Princess Leia is sitting with Han, and she's like, I wonder what idiot they roped into doing that. And then the guy's like, Han Solo, are you ready? Which absolutely cracked me up. So you can see Leia being absolutely shocked for that. And Han is like, oh, I don't have a crew. And then Chewie next to him starts complaining. And Han is like, I'm sorry, I don't want to speak for you, but thanks. Which I also thought was adorable. And then Leia is like, obviously, I'm coming too. And then they hear, count me in too. And everyone looks over and Luke
corny.
Skywalker walks out. It was so corny. But I still can't get over the fact of him wearing black in this whole movie.
Yeah.
Because I'm still thinking that that's got to be a sign. So every time I see him, I feel like it's almost a little ominous. But then Leia jumps up and she hugs him as he's walking in. And then she sees that, something's wrong. So she's like, what's wrong? And Luke says, ask me again sometime, which I actually thought was pretty cool. I did like that.
He's got a secret.
And then R2-D2 starts beeping and C-3PO is like, exciting is hardly the word I'd choose. So we know the droids are coming too. So then we see a crew, I guess, is working on the Falcon, and Han is talking to Lando, and he's like, I want you to take her. I want you to, fly her. Don't worry. And Lando's like, I know how much this ship means to you. I'll bring her back without a scratch. Don't worry. And Han is like, you promise you're not going to scratch her. Remember that. But you can see that he's just not really trusting in this situation. Oh, I forgot to mention, but when they were talking about the information that they procured, they said that there was a stolen Empire ship that they managed to get. And so that is the ship that Han and his crew, which is basically our main cast, is going to pilot. So Han obviously can't take the Falcon.
Yeah.
But they get onto that ship and Han is just looking very sadly at the Falcon. Oh, and there's this incredible shot as Lando is walking away. This terrible green screen moment where Lando turns and just immediately becomes a silhouette towards the Falcon where everybody else is just lit up normally. And he is just silhouetted walking away, and I was cracking up.
Some pretty bad green screens in this entire section.
Oh my gosh, terrible. Some of these.
There's more later.
Yeah. So Han is looking sadly at the Falcon, and Leia's like, what's wrong? And he's like, I just have a feeling I'm never going to see her again. And it's just a cute little moment. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking more in terms of the Force, and I feel a little sorry for him.
Yeah. Because it's like the ship's a part of him.
Yeah. And this Empire ship is clearly not the best ship ever. We've got Chewie complaining a little bit because clearly this was not made for Wookiees. So he is uncomfortable in his seat, and obviously Han is not thrilled. So yeah, then they fly off, and then we cut back to Death Star 2.0, and Darth is talking to the Emperor, and he says, what is thy bidding, my master? Which I really loved when he said it, I think in the second movie. So appreciated having him say it again.
He's very obedient.
And the Emperor says to send a fleet to the far side of Endor where they'll wait until they're called. And at this point, I'm starting to get a little bit confused because I thought they were right near Endor.
They are near Endor.
Oh, so they're just going to the other side?
Yeah, they're just going to the other side.
Okay. Sorry, because I'm just like, aren't they already at Endor? I guess they just meant like around the planet.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Darth is like, what of the rebel fleet? And the Emperor says basically that he doesn't care about them, and soon Luke is going to be on their side, and then the rebels are going to be crushed anyway. So then we cut back to the stolen Empire ship with our people on it, and they're approaching the Death Star, and they come in and they're requesting deactivation of the defense shield, and they have a nice stolen activation code, and they give it to the crew on the Death Star. And while they're doing that, Luke can sense that Darth is on the ship, and he's like clearly thinking that this was a mistake for him to be there. I think he actually maybe even says it was a mistake for me to be a part of this.
And Vader doesn't say it to the people he's talking to, but I think it's clear in what he says that he, at this moment, knows that Luke is there too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because we cut back to the command center, and Darth is asking about this ship, and they said they're using an old code, but it's still legit. So what do we do? Do you want us to take care of them? And Darth is like, don't worry about it. I'll take care of them myself.
Scary.
So then the shield gets deactivated. They're told to continue their course. At this point, I did think that they were not getting onto the Death Star, but they're going onto the planet Endor, I guess, to turn off the shield entirely.
Yes.
And Han is like, see, I told you it would work, guys. And he's so hyped about it. And then we watch the ship as it goes towards the planet, and we also see Darth watching the ship as it approaches.
And Luke is not convinced that it worked. I think he knows that it didn't work.
No,
yeah.
absolutely not. So then they're on Endor, and it seems to be a forest planet from what I can tell. And they're all in these like army fatigues now, which when did they change into that?
They were in them on the ship.
Oh, were they? Okay, I did not notice.
They were.
But C-3PO is stressing, which is fair because I would be stressed too at this point. You can tell he's just not having a good time.
He's never having a good time.
They see a couple of stormtroopers. And you know what else is weird? In this section, there's a couple of other men with them. And then we never see them again. What's up with that?
The extras weren't available that day. Only that one day.
Incredible.
Couldn't pay them for both.
But yeah, so they see a couple of stormtroopers, and Leia's like, we're gonna have to go around them. And Luke's like, it's gonna take too long. And then Han and Chewie elect to go take care of them. So Han starts sneaking up behind him, and I guess he steps on a branch, but the sound effect is tragically bad because it's like...
Yeah, it's like the loudest thing ever.
Yeah, that just not, it didn't even sound like a tree branch. And then the stormtrooper turns around and like they start fighting. One of the stormtroopers jumps onto like a little hover motorcycle bike thing.
Speeder, I'm assuming, yeah.
And starts zooming away. Is it called a speeder?
I think it's a speeder, yeah.
And then Chewie does shoot him down, but then there's two more stormtroopers nearby and they fly off. And then Luke and Leia jump onto an available speeder and fly off. And Luke is like giving her commands, telling her what to do, and he's like, press that button in the center, it'll jam their comm link. And I'm just like, how convenient that one stormtrooper has the power to damage other people's comm links.
Just with like one button.
Yeah, in case you need it, bad guy, here is this safety button that will prevent you from being able to talk to other guys.
Yeah.
So then this kind of hover battle ensues where there's like a race to catch these two guys, and they catch up to one of the bikes, and there's like a little fighting going on. Luke,
and this is the really bad green screen.
Terrible green
really
screen.
Really bad. For the time, it was good though. That's what we have to remember.
But yeah, I was just like, oh gosh, this is, and it was such a long scene too.
Yeah, it was a long scene.
But the gist of it is that Luke jumps onto one of the other speeders. He knocks off the stormtrooper, and then two more stormtroopers come up behind them and they're shooting them. And then Luke is like, I'll get these two, you get the guy ahead of us. So Leia goes forward, Luke goes backward. There's a whole fighting. I don't know how much detail you want here, but they do manage to get these guys knocked down.
I feel like that was plenty of detail.
Yeah.
For this scene.
You don't need to know that much. Basically, there's like a lot of shots back and forth with them fighting.
I think the important thing is that Luke and Leia both fall off their speeders, but they get separated.
Yes, so they're both off their speeders, they get separated.
I guess another notable thing in that scene is that Luke takes out his lightsaber for the first time when he falls off his speeder.
Oh yeah, he does. And he actually chops like the engine off of one of the speeders and it careens into a tree and explodes, which is pretty cool. And then I actually noted that battle took them so far away, there's no chance they're going to be able to walk back. That's incredibly far.
He just like runs back.
So then everyone's just waiting around and then they hear somebody coming and oh, it's Luke. And I'm just like, how could he have possibly gotten back in that same day? Because it took so long. And those bikes were fast.
Let's, for the suspension of disbelief, pretend that they were going in circles.
That's what I told myself, that basically they were just swerving back and forth in a big circle because there's no way. They would have been halfway across the planet.
Yeah, 100%.
So then Han is like, where's Leia? And Luke is like, oh, she didn't come back yet? And Han is like, she was with you. And Luke is like, yeah, we got separated. So then we cut to seeing Leia face down in the dirt, passed out, I guess. And this little furry monster, which they never said the name, but they, in the subtitles, it said speaking Ewokese. And I've heard the word Ewok before, so I'm assuming that's what he is.
What are your thoughts on the Ewoks?
I got thoughts, but let me explain just what's going on first. He approaches this passed out Leia and starts poking her, and then we pan up to see him, and I cannot get over how cute he is. Like, oh my gosh, I started freaking out. I wrote in all caps, caps, OMG, he's so freaking cute. And then she wakes up and she's like, cut it out.
A lot of people hate them. A lot of people
Why?
really dislike them because they're cute. They just think they don't
Aw.
belong in this universe. And I'm like, why? Why can't
Chewie's
they be
cute.
adorable? Yeah, I agree. I like the Ewoks. I'm an Ewok fan.
Yeah, I think they're adorable. And you can't discount something as not being dangerous because they're cute. I don't
Yeah.
think that's fair. No,
Yeah,
that's
I
dumb.
agree.
I don't know why people wouldn't like them. But clearly, Leia does not consider him to be a threat because she does wake up and she swats him away and she's like, cut it out. And she's still not scared when she wakes up and realizes that there's somebody pointing a weapon at her.
No, because he's a cute little teddy bear.
Which I actually thought was absolutely adorable. So then she's clearly not concerned at all. She starts walking away from him, and I'm just like, you should never turn your back on an enemy, especially one with a
Yes.
weapon pointed at you. But
Yes.
clearly, he is not a threat. He's just like a miniature teddy bear dog type of situation. And then she's like, well, I guess I'm stuck here. Maybe you can help me out. And he's still pointing his weapon at her and being super freaked. And she's like, oh, come here. Why don't I give you a little treat? I'm cracking up because it's like she's just treating him like a dog. And he
Yeah.
comes over to get the little treat and he sits next to her. And then she takes off her helmet. He gets freaked again and he jumps off and he's pointing his little stick at her again. And she's like, it's just a helmet, see? And she holds it out for him to check out. And then he hears a noise and he looks over. She does actually mention at one point that he's very jittery, which he is. But
He was.
so they hear something shoots at them actually. Some sort of blaster shoots at them and they both fall back. So they were sitting on like a log and the Ewok hides underneath the log and Leia hides behind it. She pulls out her blaster. She's looking around. She doesn't see anything. But then she hears a stormtrooper behind her holding a blaster to her and he's like, I don't actually remember exactly what he said, but he's like, come on.
Yeah, he's essentially trying to capture her.
Yeah. And then there's another guy, stormtrooper, who has another one of these little hover bikes. And the one stormtrooper is like, go back to the base and tell them what's going on. So he starts going away. And then the Ewok jumps out and bites the stormtrooper to distract him. Then Leia, knocks him out, grabs the gun, shoots at him, shoots at the other guy, and he falls off of the bike. And at this point, I thought the bike is still intact. So they're probably going to use the bike to get back home. But no, that's not what they do.
They walk.
But they don't even walk home because the Ewok, starts tugging on her and is like, no, we got to go this way. And she just follows him. So she's just following this adorable giant teddy bear.
I would too.
Oh, absolutely. So would I. So meanwhile, at the Death Star, we see Darth coming into a room that is guarded by the red-robed guys. So I'm like, oh, this is back in the Emperor's room situation. And the Emperor is like, I told you to stay on the command ship. And Darth says that there's a rebel force that has come through the shield to Endor. And he says, my son is with them. And the Emperor's like, are you sure? And Darth is like, yeah, I felt him. And the Emperor says, that's strange because I didn't feel him. Are your feelings getting in the way? And Darth is like, no, my feelings, I'm clear. I'm all good. And the Emperor says that Darth needs to go to the Sanctuary Moon and wait for him because he's foreseen Luke coming to him and his compassion will be his undoing. So it sounds to me like the Emperor knows that Luke believes that Darth is still a little bit of a good guy and he's going to use that to get Luke to join the dark side.
To seduce him to the dark side. 100%.
So back to the crew, Luke actually is hunting around. He finds Leia's helmet and that there are 2 wrecked speeders and Chewie starts howling and I'm like, okay, he found them maybe, but he leads them over to this tree and there's this kind of dismembered animal on the tree and everyone comes over to look at it. Again, the extras are completely gone, so it's just our main crew now. So they're all looking and then Chewie reaches out to touch it and Han's like, no, wait, don't do it. And then he grabs it and it is a trap because a net springs up and ties them all up to a tree. And it's the whole crew. I mean, Han, Luke, C-3PO, R2-D2, and Chewie are all in this entanglement. So then this actually frustrated me so much, I gotta tell you. But so R2-D2 starts sawing away to get them out of this rope and C-3PO is like, this isn't a good idea, but they do manage to get free. And I mean, C-3PO was saying it wasn't a good idea because he thought the fall was too long, but they all get out and they're totally fine. And then they look around and they are surrounded by Ewoks who are pointing their weapons. And Han, much like Leia, is not scared of these Ewoks at all, even though they have weapons. So he's like, point that thing somewhere else. And he starts like shoving one away. And everyone's getting real worked up. The Ewoks are getting mad. And Luke is trying to to convince Han to just listen to them and just take a chill pill. And C-3PO sits up, and then the Ewoks start freaking out and bowing to him. This is where I started getting actually infuriated, because at first I'm like, why isn't C-3PO translating what's going on? But then he does start speaking Ewokese to them, and he starts talking to them, and Han is like, what's going on? And C-3PO is like, oh, they think I'm some sort of god. They're speaking a primitive dialect, but they think that I'm this deity. And Han is like, all right, well then use your deity status to get us free. And C-3PO is like, well, it's not in my programming to pretend to be a god, so I can't do that. Which I'm like, dude, so then are you going to tell them? But no, he doesn't tell them. So he just goes on pretending to be a deity.
Without saying anything.
So they're carting him around in some throne. They've got everybody else tied up. They go to this treehouse city where the Ewoks live. And I'm just like, if you can't impersonate a deity, then why are you impersonating a deity? That's literally exactly what you're doing.
He can't like say it, but he can just like accept what's happening.
Yeah, but then later he actually does impersonate a deity. But we'll talk about that. Let me just set the scene for you.
It does contradict itself slightly.
It contradicts itself, and it makes me so annoyed.
And it's also showing C-3PO in the light that you see him in.
Yeah, this is, I was fully suspicious at this point that something was going on. So they've got C-3PO on this throne. They're all talking to him, and it looks like they've got, what's it called? It's like a spit.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think so.
So they got the other guys basically on a spit. So you know they're about to get eaten. And Han is like, please tell me what's going on. And C-3PO is like, oh, I'm so embarrassed to say this, but it turns out that you're the main course in a banquet being held in my honor. Which, okay, so you are pretending to be a deity at this point.
Yeah. He's just like allowing everything to happen. He could easily just be like, oh, I'm not hungry for this today.
Yeah, seriously. He could have just said anything without directly implying, but whatever. So Leia comes out. She starts saying, like, those are my friends, but the Ewoks are not on board with it. And she tells C-3PO to make them let everyone go. And he's like, I don't think they'll listen to me. And then he says something, and I'm like, dude, he definitely did not say to let them go. Because they would have listened to him.
I think so too.
So then they start building the fires to cook them. And Luke is like, tell them that if they don't release us, you're going to get angry and use your magic. And C-3PO's like, but I don't have any magic. And Luke is like, just say it. So then he says it. Again, I'd like to point out that he is impersonating a deity.
Well, we don't know what he said. He might have said something different.
That's true. But they do not listen to him. And he's like, see, I told you they wouldn't listen to me. And then Luke uses the Force to make C-3PO in his throne hover above everyone, and C-3PO starts freaking out. He's like, somebody help me, get me down, get me down. He's having the hardest time. The Ewoks are terrified. They're running for cover. And of course, at this point, the Ewoks think that he is an angry and vengeful god, and so they let the friends go. And then Leia runs over and kisses Han.
Oh, that was cute.
And everyone's like gasping around them.
Were they?
I didn't understand why they were so shocked. Yeah. Everyone was like,
ooh, they're in love.
And then R2-D2 like shoots someone in the butt a little bit, which again, I'm like, why is this happening?
He's like, get away from me. Pew, pew, pew. I got to do it every episode.
Oh,
I'm so
please
sorry.
don't.
And also at the end of that scene, Luke says to C-3PO, like, good job, C-3PO. And C-3PO's like, thanks. I didn't know I had it in me. Like taking credit for saving the day when he literally did nothing.
I got to tell you, I think even though me and C-3PO have a lot in common in that we're annoying and scared of everything, I do not like C-3PO.
You're more honorable than him. You would never let your friends down.
I'd like to think I'm slightly more honorable. Like, I think he's a little too passive to be me. Like, I'm totally on board with him being like, yeah, I don't want to be a part of any of this. But once you're already in it, you kind of have to try. Yeah. And he's just so adamant about not trying ever. So I think that's where we differ.
I agree.
But yeah, so then we see, I guess, like a little while later, C-3PO is telling all the Ewoks the story of what happened in Star Wars. And he's actually doing really cool sound effects. So I will give him that. He's doing cool sound effects, and he's probably a good storyteller, although it's kind of hard to say because he's speaking another language. But we see the whole crew kind of watching him tell this story. And then after he finishes, everyone starts murmuring, and Han is like, uh-oh, what's going on? And Leia's like, I don't know. And then someone says something to C-3PO, and he translates that now they are welcome to be a part of the tribe.
Yay.
And he says that the scouts are going to show them where the shield generator is. So this is great because now they can shut down the shield and then they can blow up the new Death Star.
Perfect.
So then Luke goes outside and Leia follows, and she's like, what's wrong? And Luke's like, do you remember your mom? And Leia's like, she died when I was very young, but I remember like images of her. I know she was very beautiful and kind and sad. And then she's like, why are you asking this? And Luke is like, I don't remember my mother at all. And Leia's like, Luke, what's going on? Like, tell me what's troubling you. And Luke says that Vader is here on this moon. And Leia says, how do you know? And Luke says that he can sense Darth, and likewise Darth can sense him and knows that he's here, and so he has to go and he has to face him. And Leia's like, why does it have to be you? And Luke finally tells her it's because he's my father. And he says if he doesn't come back, then Leia's their only hope. And Leia actually says, don't be silly, you have a power I don't have and I could never possibly understand. And Luke is like, well, you have power too. The Force is strong in my family. My father has it. I have it. My sister has it. And Leia's just got this dawning realization, and he's like, that's right, you're my sister. And she says, I know. Somehow I've always known. Which actually did give me like a little bit of a chill, because I was like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah. I love that whole scene.
Definitely a very cool moment. And then Luke says, then you know why I have to face him. And Leia still is not on board with it. She's like, listen, if he knows and can sense where you are, then why don't you go really far away? And Luke is basically like, I know there's some good in him. He's my father. I can turn him back. And then he kisses her on the cheek. I actually had to rewind this and rewatch it because I was like,
to make sure that they didn't kiss on the lips.
Did they just kiss?
No.
But I watched very closely the second time around, and he did kiss her on the cheek. But I was like, you can't tell me after he told her that they're siblings that they just kissed again.
No.
Thank goodness. So then Han walks out as Luke is leaving, and he asks what's going on, and Leia's like, nothing, I just want to be alone for a bit. And then Han is like, tell me what's going on. And Leia's like, I can't tell you. And then Han gets super jealous, and he's like, but you could tell Luke. And then he almost starts storming off, but then he comes back and he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it.
Yeah.
And then Leia says, hold me. And then they hug.
So dramatic.
It was so dramatic.
I like it though.
Is that what people reference when they dramatically say hold me, or is that just a coincidence?
Maybe. I'm not really sure.
I thought it was super cringe.
It's got that like old timey like opera kind of vibe to it, you know, like over
like
dramatic.
the beginning of when film started having audio.
Yeah, exactly. I almost feel like this whole scene almost feels very theatrical, you know, like you're seeing it on the stage.
Yeah, actually very well said, because it's this one static spot too, and it kind of does feel like that. And as Luke is walking off stage, Han is walking on stage.
Han's walking on stage, yeah.
So then we see another ship from the Death Star is landing on this moon/planet. I'm just using these words interchangeably at this point because they're using the words interchangeably at this point.
Yeah, we get it. We get it.
And we see an AT-AT passing by, and I do have to note, up until this point, and including this point, they still haven't called them AT-ATs.
Nope.
But I'm just trusting you that that's what they're called.
They're called that, yeah.
So the AT-AT stops. Darth comes out of the ship, and out of the AT-AT comes Luke, and he's tied up. This is not what I was expecting. I thought that he was going to come approach him alone, just like how we saw in the last movie. But no, apparently he surrendered himself. So there's stormtroopers, there's this commander guy, and he's like, this rebel surrendered to us. He says he's alone, but I'm pretty sure there are others. Do you want me to search for them? And he also says this is the only weapon he had on him, and it's his lightsaber. And Darth is like, go conduct your search and bring back his companions. And he takes the lightsaber, and then he's like, leave us. And then he's walking with Luke, and I don't remember exactly what he said to Luke, but Luke is like, yes, father. And Darth is like, so you accept it?
He says the Emperor has been expecting you.
Oh, yes, yeah, okay. Sorry. So much important stuff happened in this moment that I was getting a little overwhelmed.
I know. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, and then Darth is like, oh, so you've accepted that I'm your father. And Luke says, I've accepted that you were once known as Anakin Skywalker before you became Darth Vader. And Darth gets a little snappy. And he's like, that name no longer has any meaning to me. And at this point, I'm like, wait a second. No shot. Is Darth going to end up being redeemed, right?
I don't know.
Don't tell me.
I'm obviously not going to tell you, but it's very clear at this point that Luke believes that he can.
Yeah.
So he's going to try to.
But like, no chance, right? I don't know. Oh my gosh, I'm so conflicted because I'm like, there's no shot. Because then I feel like as popular as this franchise is, I would have heard if Darth Vader ended up being a good guy in the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so at this point, I'm just like, I have literally no idea what's going to happen. But Luke starts going in real hard. And he's like, I know there's some good in you. That's why you couldn't destroy me. And that's why you're not going to bring me to the Emperor right now, which is a very bold claim to make, considering he then sends him to the Emperor.
He came in so confident. He's like, I'm going to surrender. I'm going to have one conversation with my dad.
Yeah.
And he's going to come back to the light side of the Force.
But you know what? He was so confident about it that I was believing him for a minute. I was like, wait a second. Is this about to happen? But no, it's not. So then Darth pulls out Luke's lightsaber and he's looking at it and he's like, I see you've constructed a new lightsaber. And he says that he did end up being pretty powerful, which the Emperor has foreseen. And Luke is like, come with me, which I'm like, again, bold statement to make. This is a bold gamble.
Yeah. And like, you're going to bring him to the rebels? Like, what are you going to do with him?
Yeah, what's going to happen next? There's no chance. I don't think he really thought this through, but Darth obviously did. And Darth actually says, which again started to make me question it, because he's like, it's too late for me, son, which I'm thinking almost sounds a little bit like a plea. Like, save me.
And he says, like, I have to obey my master. You know, like, he has no choice in the matter, but Luke is feeling the conflict within him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I don't remember if he says it, but I think it's very clearly implied that Luke can feel the inner turmoil that Darth is feeling about it. So unless Darth is an incredibly good actor, well, I mean, the character Darth, then he is actually feeling a little bit of struggle about letting his son go to the Emperor. But he does end up sending him to him, and he says the Emperor will show you the true nature of the Force. He is your master now. And Luke says, then my father is truly dead. And he goes with the stormtroopers, which is crazy. And then the last thing we see is Darth looking out, and obviously we can't see his face, but it seems like he's feeling a little overwhelmed with the situation as well, because I'm also feeling overwhelmed with the situation.
I know.
And that is where we ended this section. And Leah, I am nervous. I know there's more movies in this franchise, but it feels like this trilogy is the most important, and I'm so stressed about what's going to happen. I feel like people are going to die.
I feel like we have a really good setup, though, for the end. So we've got Luke, who's going to the Emperor. We've got Han and Leia, who are going to go deactivate the defense mechanism. And then Lando, once that is done, is supposed to lead a mission to destroy the Death Star. So in this next section, we're going to have these 3 different plots happening alongside each other.
But here's my worry, okay? I'm stressed out because Luke is going to be on the Death Star.
Ooh,
so
that's true.
Is he going to get blown? Is he going to sacrifice himself for this greater good? I don't know. Can he? Oh, I don't even want to think about it, but I feel like it's a huge possibility.
And do you still think that he will go to the dark side? Like, what do you think his interaction with the Emperor is going to be?
It's tough because I've been so convinced that he's going to just start getting into the dark side, honestly, even against his will, just because he's such an emotional guy. And I'm thinking maybe there's a chance that he's still going to be turned into this kind of bad guy, and he's going to stop Lando and his crew, and then maybe Lando is going to save him or something, and then pull him out in time for the Death Star to blow up. And then once the Death Star is blown up, Luke is going to be like, wait, I'm not a bad guy. But I don't know. I have a feeling that that's not going to happen. And what actually is going to happen is that Luke is going to try to convince Vader to be a good guy, and then he's going to end up dying along with the rest of them. So that's my official prediction.
Ooh,
but I do have
tough.
the secondary prediction in there, because if that's not what happens, then it's definitely the other thing. 50-50. But I don't know. Oh, I gotta say, I'm stressed.
I am excited that you're stressed. I feel like, I love this film so much. I love the different character interactions that we get, like these scenes with Luke and Leia. I love so much. Also, Leia's long hair blowing in the
Gorgeous.
wind, looking incredible. Yeah. No muscle tees for me in this film, so I have to love Leia with her long hair. So we got no more muscle tee Luke in this film.
Oh my gosh. But we do have him in all black.
I do like the all black because, as you say, I like the bad guys.
You as a native New Yorker?
And that too, yeah. I only wear black. So, yeah, I do love that.
I also only wear black, as we both say, wearing gray t-shirts while we're filming this.
Yep. We are. And gray sweatpants.
Oh my gosh, I'm wearing gray sweatpants too.
Oh my gosh, we're twins, just like Luke and Leia.
Wow. Oh my gosh, we need to stop ourselves. But we do normally wear black, I feel like, because we're very colorful on everything else. Like, I think we're into the colorful makeup and the hair. But anyway, that's really digressing
We digress.
a lot. But we will see you next week for the final episode of the original Star Wars trilogy.
Ooh,
it's crazy.
yes.
I know I keep saying this, but it's so crazy to me when I fully experience something. And I think even though there's so much more Star Wars to experience, I think once I've experienced this original trilogy fully, I'll be like a person who has seen Star Wars. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Like, no, I'm sure not everybody has seen all 50 movies and TV shows that they have.
Oh, well, now that Disney has it, I'm just like worried because they've been churning out so much. It was like, we didn't get a second iteration of Star Wars until the 2000s. And then it was a good amount of time till we got the next ones. But now it's with the TV shows and Disney taking over. It's just like so much. It's becoming a Marvel thing. And I've got my opinions on Marvel.
Which we might watch in this podcast.
We might watch Marvel because neither one of us, I'm not a Marvel person. That's not my fandom.
I'm not really a Marvel person either. I've seen a couple of them.
Yeah, but I would do it for you.
Aww.
I do it for the not for you. I was talking to the listeners. I would do it for you, listeners.
Oh, not for Kelly. Don't worry, guys.
Not for
she
Kelly,
hates me.
no.
We'll discuss more after we finish the original trilogy. We'll dive deep a little bit more into maybe what we're gonna watch in addition to this original trilogy.
Yes.
Well, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
You've been listening to the It's All Geek to Me podcast, hosted by Leah and Kelly. Make sure to hit subscribe in your favorite podcast player and give us a rating. You can also follow us on Twitter at All Geek Podcast. New episodes drop every Thursday. See you next week.